language with the word hinc, which means from here. Or you could translate it, as I did, as from then. But the idea is from here, from this point, a genus, a race, a tribe, a nation, a people, will surget, will arise, quod, which. So this is the neuter of qui quae quod, and it's neuter because it's agreeing with genus. A race shall arise, which mixtum, mixed with, plus ablative, ausonio sanguine, which means Ausonian blood or Italian blood. So it is a race which you will see, videbis, you will see, going, ire, literally you will see to go, but in English we would say you will see going, supra homines, above men, and supra deos, above gods, in piety or in dutifulness. In other words, these Romans will be better at piety, better at honouring the gods and so on, than all other men. And in fact, they will be even better at it than other gods. That's a slightly strange thing to say, that Romans will be better at worshipping the gods than the gods are, but I think this is a bit of kind of exaggeration from Jupiter, really, to make his point. And then he says, nec, which means nor. Nor will ulla gains, any people, celebrabit, nor will any people celebrate tuos honores, your honours or your worship, aeque, that means equally or to the same extent. It's an adverb. And then the subject in the next sentence is Juno, adnuit his. That means literally she nodded to these things. In other words, she assented to or agreed to these things. And, that's it, she happily, laetata, literally having been made happy, but in English we would just say happily, retorsit mentem. Now this is a kind of metaphor because retorsit literally means twisted back or turned back. Literally, she turned back her mind. In other words, she changed her mind. That's what we would say in English. Meanwhile, in Terea, she excadit Kylo. She withdraws from, goes away from heaven. Kylo. So excado takes ablative, so she withdraws from heaven. And, she relinquit nubem. She leaves behind the cloud. Okay, and then we then go on to the next page, and we have a little ablative absolute here. His actis. Literally, that means with these things having been done. So you could say something like having done this, or this done, or something like that. So literally, with these things having been done, the genitor, the father, genitor ipse, the father himself, volutat, literally that means turns or rolls, but in English we would say something like ponders, thinks about, aliud, another thing, with himself, secum. He ponders another thing with himself, and I translated secum as in his heart. In other words, he's thinking to himself about another thing, right? And the meaning of aliud, which means another thing, is that, the first thing he was pondering is how to get Juno to agree to his plan. And that has now succeeded. So he's now thinking about another thing. And we're about to find out what that is. So this done, the father himself ponders another thing with himself, or in his heart, and, he prepares to send away, dimittere, to send away, juturnam, from ab the armis fratris, literally the weapons of her brother. In other words, Juturna has been there with the weapons of her brother. If you remember, she gave Turnus back his sword that he was supposed to be using. And Jupiter wants to get her away from there, away from the battlefield, right? If Turnus is going to lose, which is the plan, Jupiter is going to have to get his divine sister, his goddess sister, out of the way. So that's the point. And then the story seems to change direction a little bit, because we have the subject here in line 845 is Gemini pestes. Literally, that means twin fiends or pests or evils, something like this. Twin fiends are dicuntur, are spoken about, are spoken of. In other words, there is a story that there are these twin creatures, these twin evil creatures. Cognomine, that means literally with the name Dirai. So, or you could say named Dirai. So this is the name of these two creatures. They are called the Dirai. And dirus is an adjective that means dire or dreaded or fearsome, something like that. And Dirai is the feminine plural. So I've translated Dirai as dread ones. Whom, so this is quas, meaning who, but it's accusative plural. So I've translated it as whom. Whom nox in tempesta. That means literally timeless night, or something like the dead of night, you could even say in English. That spooky, the idea is that spooky time of night where, it's just the middle of the night and nothing is moving, nothing can be done. It's as if time has stopped. So timeless night, tulit, bore, in the sense of gave birth to. In fact, that's something which Latin has in common with English, right? So ferro, this verb ferro, ferre, tuli, latum, in Latin, ferro, means I carry or bear, but you can also use it to mean giving birth to, which is the same as in English, if you think about it. In English, you can bear something in the sense of carry it, right? You can bear I don't know, you normally see it in literature, really. You bear something from one place to another, but then also you can talk about bearing a child, and that's the sense that tulit has here. So whom timeless night bore, i.e. gave birth to, in one, uno, in one and the same, eodem, in one and the same, partu, that means birth. So which timeless night bore, gave birth to, in one birth and in the same birth. In other words, they are twins. And we also have et here, et tartaream megairam. So the idea is, the Latin literally says, whom and this other person. So in English we would say, whom along with, or something like that. Whom along with Tartarian Megaira, or infernal or hellish Megaira, timeless night bore in one and the same birth, right? So there was one birth, one action of giving birth, which produced these three hellish creatures, right? The two Dirai, the two dread ones, and also infernal Megaira. So timeless night bore them, and also revinxit them, that means sort of wreathed them, covered them, with paribus spiris, with equal coils, or spirals, of snakes, serpentum, that's genitive plural, with equal coils of snakes, and quae, added to them, or placed on them, ventosas alas. Literally, that means windy wings. Ventosos means windy, so windy wings. Right? I translated that as wings of wind. I think the idea is wings that are swift or quick as the wind, as quick as the wind. I think that's the idea. Okay, and then we go on to the next page again. Okay, with high. Now, high means these, but it's feminine plural, so the idea is these women, these creatures. It's referring back to the dirai, the dire ones, the dread ones. So these apparent, literally they appear at the throne, ad solium. I put in my translation, they attend at the throne. Because I think the idea is they appear in the sense of they are there to serve. So they attend at the throne, a solium is a chair or a throne, of Jovis Saevi, of savage Jupiter. Okay, I put Zeus in my translation, but actually it would be better to say Jupiter since we're in Latin poetry. They attend at the throne of savage Jupiter. And also they attend, so we have que again, and they attend in limine, on the threshold, of the king. And in fact, I think probably what we should do here is take, I mean, you could, in theory, you could take Saevi with Jovis, or you could take Saevi with Regis, or you could have it twice. I think the best thing to do is probably to keep it with Regis, actually. So probably to say, these attend at the throne of Jupiter and on the threshold of the savage king. I said of that savage king. The reason I said that in my translation was just to make it clear that this is still referring to Jupiter, not to some other king. Okay, so that's what they do. These attend at the throne of Jupiter and on the threshold of that savage king. And what else do they do? And they literally acuunt. That literally means to sharpen. So literally they sharpen fear. In English, we might say they arouse fear for mortalibus aegris. So this is dative plural. For feeble mortals. Aeger means sort of weak or sick or feeble. For feeble mortals. Si quando literally that means where, if, when, but in English we would say whenever. Okay, whenever the Rex Deum, the king of the gods, so whenever the king of the gods, yes, that should say in the translation king of gods or king of the gods. Deum is a shortened version of Deorum. So whenever the king of the gods is molitur, is working, is fashioning, is wreaking, we might say in English, horrificum latum, dreadful death, horrifying death, latum is death, and diseases, and morbos que. Right, so whenever the king of the gods is wreaking dreadful death and diseases, or whenever he is territat, whenever he is terrifying, meritas urbes, deserving cities, in other words, cities that deserve this punishment, cities that have it coming, with war, bello.